Welcome to the Great Living Sources YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about a series of events. We've been kind of talking about different things and stuff. Today I want to speak directly to like a series of events and how that may tie in with some of the other things that we've been talking about. A series of events can be essentially that. It's a series of things that happen, events that happen that compound or cascade along, making it something even worse. Some types of things that could be a series of events. You could have a severe snowstorm or ice storm, which then leads to a power outage. The power outage then leads to financial problems because now you can't get access to the money. If something additional happens to the power grid, say transformers start going out, there's a cyber attack or a physical terrorist attack against the power grid system, and it's going to cause a cascading effect. It's a series of events. It could also be, be a series of events such as we have the migrant caravans coming up from the south. With that, they have disease-infected, children, adults. Whether it's intended or intentional or not intentional, it wouldn't matter. Then you have threat from the caravan itself. You then have diseases that are being brought that a lot of American children nowadays are not inoculated against because it's been removed from our society, such as measles, mumps, those kinds of things, whatever it is. I'm not the disease guy. I'm a readiness dude. I have folks that are more into that. So, like a pandemic that came with that would then start to have repercussions because if you get a large a portion of the population that become infected by whatever this is, then you may not have workers for the power systems. You may not have workers for the different businesses. There's another thing that I just saw in the news today that there's talk of the truckers going on strike here pretty soon. That's going to have a lot of rippling effects across our nation. Most of the goods and services like groceries, everything that you buy at a store, 98% of that stuff is delivered by truck, and it's transported by truck from points of entry. Fruits and vegetables come in by boat or plane from other countries and are transported to a shipping center, which then is distributed to the various local grocery stores and stuff. So if there is any type of a significant impact to that transportation delivery system, distribution system, then there's going to be significant impacts on your ability to procure the items that you want, fresh fruits and vegetables, cereals, bread, milk, eggs, all of that stuff, which kind of leads us back to that self-reliant stuff that we've been talking about. Because, if you're growing your own food, making your own clothes and stuff, then the impacts of this type of a situation will have less of an impact. However, if you're not self-reliant or self-sustaining, then these are going to have some serious repercussions. And my bet is that most folks, maybe not the ones actually listening to this video or watching this video, but most folks are not ready, and a lot of them don't have enough supplies or resources to survive a week or so. Another thing I want to bring up in the IAC's report that DHS put out, the National Infrastructure Advisory Council for the President, they talked about a series of events as well. They talked about major disaster, major natural disaster, and then cyber or physical attacks against the power infrastructure. So any type of a series of events, it doesn't have to be, a catastrophic, hurricane that's a Cat 5 that takes out and wipes out a area. Anything, even smaller series of events can have cascading impacts because, as we've talked about before, without power, we don't have water, we don't have sewage treatment facilities, we don't have financial access to our money. People are trying to get, they've been trying to push this cashless society on us, and in many countries, a lot of them, or some of them, have already gone cashless. So without an electronic system, you won't be able to purchase anything, even if the stores are stocked. It could be full to overflowing, but you're not going to be able to get anything out of there because you don't have the method of payment. There's no way to pay it. So all of these are reasons that we need to be ready. It doesn't have to be the end of the world as you know it. Snowstorm, ice storm, that can temporarily take out power. If there's a large enough one, it could take down a significant portion of the nation's infrastructure and cause a lot of problems. And it may be several days to months before that stuff comes up. We talked about it before. The DHS report that they put out talked about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was out of power for 11 months. In some areas, due to terrain and inability to gather parts, they they were out even longer. 11 months. That's almost a year, folks. I don't know how many people, but I would venture to guess probably maybe 1%, 2% of the United States population could actually survive a whole year without being able to go to the store. So those, again, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to open your eyes and say, hey, it doesn't have to be the end of the world as we know it. It doesn't have to be stuff that's hit the fan and, all hell's broke loose. It can be small incidents that come in a chain that can prevent you from being able to purchase stuff. So, imagine what would happen if, there's a snowstorm or ice storm or even a large thunderstorm, tornado. We've been, this crazy weather, you never know what it's going to do. Today we had snow. It's warming up. It's supposed to rain tonight. We could have a tornado tonight. So say that a storm hits, whatever kind, and then later these truckers go on strike. A fault on the truckers. If you're a trucker, you've got to do what you got to do. If that truckers go on strike, then stores have already they only maintain 3 days worth of supplies inside their store for the most part. Some of the larger ones might be able to carry more. But let's just say for this example, we have 3 days. So 3 days worth of food, you've had a storm, and now all of a sudden you have a trucker strike. So the storm is gone, but now there's a trucker strike. So now how long is it going to be before you actually get, or the store gets resupplied? Okay. Before the store can get or before you can purchase stuff, the store has to get resupplied. So it's a cascading effect. And then, say for example, just for the case of this illustration, that you have a storm passes, kind of get back to somewhat normal, truckers go on strike. Okay, so now you're not got anything, and then another storm hits. So it could be a month or two before you could actually get to the store to get things. So, and if the power has gone out in between there, that's an additional challenge that you have to face to get into getting supplies and stuff. So, there's just so many things that can happen that impact what we, how we live out our normal daily life, So part of what I want to talk about is, we want to be ready, but we want to have a spirit of calmness. We don't want to be in fear. Okay. I know I've talked about this before, but it's something that is near and dear to my heart that I want to reinforce. In our brain, there's this thing called the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is that part of our brain that enables our higher reasoning capabilities. It's what allows us to do complex functions. Okay, when that becomes stressed, whether it's not being able to buy food, from having a snowstorm and having to deal with that, from having a trucker strike and dealing with that, from whatever, that's going to hamper our ability to think, which is also where the planning piece of our, the part of our brain that does the planning. So if you don't have a plan, a written plan, a plan in your head is an idea, it's not a plan. But if you don't have a written plan, if you haven't thought this out now, while you don't have that stress on you, then the logic that you do or that you use to try to do something is going to be flawed. A friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, she does disaster relief. She goes in after disasters have occurred to help bring relief and supplies in to the victims that have been impacted. In her book, Major Disasters Lessons Learned, she talks about some incidences that she's witnessed. And one of them is really heart-wrenching, in my opinion. It was a dad and an uncle, aunts, cousins, all this, and they decided to ride the storm out. So, they didn't have a plan. They were just having this party or whatever. I don't know. But essentially, everything went south, and they took a direct hit. During the storm, the dad and the uncle just determined that they weren't going to be able to survive this. So they tied some of them to the trees, the family members to the trees, in order to, hopefully some of them would survive. One did, a little girl who basically lost everybody, had to listen to all of those folks, scream, pray, whatever they were doing, as the storm took them away. Okay? That should never have happened. Okay? If they had just been ready for that disaster and had thought this out before the disaster got to them, that whole scenario could have been completely changed. It may never even have happened. Okay, I implore you to, if you really care about those that you love, those who that live with you, your family, your friends, coworkers, whoever, if you really care, you will have a plan. Make it top priority. We always say, oh yeah, we'll get to that, we'll get to that. Well, you know what? You get to that, and then the point comes and you never have got to it. So now you don't have a plan, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what to do, where to go, you don't have enough stuff, you don't have the skills or resources you need. Get those things now. Um, I, I, it's so frustrating because I have seen firsthand what happens. I've lived through several hurricanes when I was in Fort Bragg. Um, as a disaster relief chairman, I've been to places after the events have occurred. I've seen, just as a volunteer helping to restore power and stuff back to these areas that have been devastated by natural disasters. I've seen what happens. And if you are not ready, I know what's going to happen to you. Okay? Yeah, you might get lucky today, you might get lucky tomorrow. I'm telling you, eventually, that luck's going to run out. And when it does, you may not be the one that suffers. It may be those that are around you, and you will then suffer because you are going to be the one watching those people get carried away in that storm because you decided that you were too big and bad or bold or whatever, and that you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Well, fine, you may be, but what about everybody else? What happens if something happens to you, Mr. I have a plan or Mrs. I have a plan? Um, you know, if you were the one that's taken out, what are the rest of them folks going to do? Because they don't know. You haven't allowed them and you haven't taught them. Okay. I know some of you out there have been getting ready and are putting things away. I'm telling you, if you have a warehouse full of stuff and you don't have a plan, you are not ready. Okay. I don't know how much plainer I can make it. Um, and people, you may not, have turned off this video by now. I'm telling you, the only way that you know you are ready is to have a plan and to rehearse that plan and make sure that you have learned the skills that you would need in order to survive whatever type of event or a series of events that you may face. Okay. That's what I want to do. I want to help others so that they don't have to face what that little girl had to face because, her parents, her dad, her uncle, whoever, her family decided that they didn't need a plan, that they were ready and they can handle whatever happens. Well, I'm telling you, you can't handle Mother Nature. Mother Nature is always going to win. I don't care who you are. I don't care how bad you are. I consider myself pretty survival ready. Been through a lot of crap, but I'm telling you, you can never be 100% ready for what could happen. You just can't. I've been in battles and wars. The things that you see when you go into these places, you'd never want anybody that you love or care about to see that crap. It's I don't even know how to describe it. It's something that you just don't even want to talk about because it's so bad. Okay. And if you decide to ride the storm out, that's your prerogative. Um, I would strongly suggest that you send your family and friends, those that you love and care about, to a safe location before you decide to do this. And, have your last will and testimony done because odds are you're not going to make it, guys and gals. So, Yeah, I know this one's kind of a downer, but I'm telling you, there are things that we can do to help besides the plan or in addition to the plan, in addition to the supplies. A friend of mine made a comment that, I feel or I may come across this not, not, uh, how's the word I'm going to look? You don't need to have a bunch of supplies. That's absolutely false. That is not what I'm trying to say. Um, yes, you can survive if you don't have supplies. My recommendation is in addition to the plan, and I always state, have a plan, and in the plan, identify the resources that you need. That means food, water, clothing, shelter, locations, everything. Um, Identify what those are. Identify the skills that you would need in order to survive that particular event, whatever that plan is for. Have and identify, be as specific as you can possibly be, what actions that need to be taken before for the disaster, during the disaster, and after the disaster. Okay, so that people know where to go, know what to do, they know what to bring with them. For example, one of the examples that I give in the past, um, if you're in an earthquake-prone area, one of the things that you should do, and especially absolutely if it's a gas water heater, secure that water heater to the wall. I don't mean just to the drywall, I mean to the 2x4s, studs that actually support that wall. Because if that thing falls over and gas starts to escape and there's a spark, you're gone. That house is going to absolutely burn up. Okay? That's an example of an action that you should take before disaster occurs. Okay? Securing heavy furniture, that's another one. Anything that presents a crushing hazard, heavy bookcases, refrigerators, what do they call them? Those big cabinet things that you can get in like Europe and Germany and stuff. Trunks, those big trunks that people bring back from overseas when they go overseas. All that stuff should be secured to the studs inside the wall to help prevent those from crushing somebody. Okay, those are actions that you can take before. Additional actions that you take before. Find locations that are in a safe area. Now, when I did that study for that family in California, there was no area that was outside of their home that would be close enough that I could get them to in a reasonable amount of time safely. So they had to shelter in place. Then after the event, they had to get out of there because the chaos that was going to follow and the gang activities or the gangs that were surrounding their area, there were probably going to be a lot of looting and a lot of bad things happening. Okay, so I absolutely had to get out of that house after the event. Okay, so identify these safe locations that you can go to. Make sure that everybody that's part of your group knows where these are and they know how to get there. Have a map. One of the things I was discussing with a friend of mine yesterday, actually the same friend, is they've got folks that will be coming to their location. Okay, so in the Army, there's a map that we create. It's called a crash rescue map, and basically, it's a map that the pilots take with them that they can transmit their location back to the headquarters, even though they're not on a secure channel, because the secure channels you can't count on once the plane crashes, and they may only have basically like a CB kind of a radio. On this map, you identify the points that you're at and that the folks are at that need to come to wherever. Okay. So, for example, if there is a safe area that's your bug out location and it's 20 miles to the northeast, okay, so you would plot the points of people where they live, and you would draw concentric circles away from that location until it passes that bug out location. Okay, then just like on a map, you have the grid lines that actually tell you, where you are, depending on what type of map it is. It may be in lat long. If it's a government issued map, then it's probably got military grid reference system that we have. But essentially, you put this box, looks like a checkerboard, of 1 kilometer, 1 mile squares. And then you number those squares alphanumerically, but you do not do them in sequential order. So if you start at the upper left, you would not start, you could start A1, but it would not be A2 right beside it. It would be like Z7, whatever. All of the squares are not sequentially numbered, okay? So then if you're on a CB or if you're on a ham radio, which, anybody that has a CB that's on that frequency or a ham radio that's on that frequency can pick up your transmission, you could tell those folks that you're going to, I'm in ring 3, A4, or whatever it is. They can look on their map and they know exactly where you are. So when you create these maps, everybody that's in that group has one of those maps. You also have backups for that, so that if something happens and somebody loses a map, then you can switch to a different map, but you need to make sure that you're all on the same map when something happens. So there's a lot of ways to do all that stuff. Those are some of the things that we discuss and we talk about when we talk about helping folks to stay safe and to be ready. Dealing with these kinds of things is difficult. The other thing that goes along with those maps and the radios and transmission and communication is like CBs. Have a list of numbers of CB channels. Most of the CBs nowadays have 40 channels. So basically you have a list of numbers 1 through 40, and then you non-sequentially list CB channels, so that if somebody breaks in on our transmission, I can say, hey, let's switch to channel number 5. Okay, so channel number 5 may be channel 40, whatever it is. So essentially you're trying to stay in that, get a channel that somebody else isn't on listening into your conversation. So there's different things. There's a lot of different stuff that can happen with that. So the thing is be ready, and it doesn't have to be a major disaster. It can be a series of events that can cause you not be able to get to a grocery store, to get to a Walmart or Lowe's or Kroger's or Publix or whatever, grocery store that you go to. It could be a series of things that happen. Okay, so that's our show for today. I thank you for stopping by and listening. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below this video. You can also go to, send me an email at Great Living Sources. You can find me on Facebook at GeoSky or Great Living Sources. Those are both mine. You can go to the website at www.greatlivingsources.com. We have a comment section up at the top We also have a blog. There's a blog that's associated with this particular video on the blog today. Um, I'll put a link in the comments or the comments below the video. And whatever you do, today is the day that you need to start your plan. You need to sit down and think, what do I need in order to make it through this event? What skills do I need to know should this event occur? What actions do I need to take before this event occurs? What actions do I need to take during this event? What actions do I need to take after the event? Okay, all of these are critical things that will help you to survive in a world that's full of chaos and calamity. Okay, so thank you for stopping by. Remember the core of calm. It's going to help you to stay balanced and focused and to help keep that prefrontal cortex activated even though chaos is reigning all around you. So thank you, and hopefully we'll talk to you tomorrow.